A tall and, without a doubt, warm garden bed made from a progressive, ultra-durable material, all of which can be found at any hardware store. Making such a garden bed is so simple that even the laziest people who have never held anything heavier than a spoon can handle it. These garden beds are ideal for getting a large harvest, especially in areas with risky farming conditions. They will save your plants from getting waterlogged during endlessly rainy seasons, and on the contrary, during very hot and dry summers. These beds require minimal watering and are superior to raised beds made of wood polymer composite, galvanized metal, slate, concrete, or plastic windowsills. Our food security is now out of danger. Beds made from this material can be absolutely any shape and can look very expensive while actually costing next to nothing. With them, our harsh plots will start to resemble palace park ensembles. With such beds, not only oligarchs but even royal families will envy us. And all this for mere pennies and with so little effort that it can hardly even be called work, because it's pure, enjoyable creativity that's available to everyone. Viewers of the Yasha Kosiak Songs channel will be the first to learn this important information. Let's go through everything step by step. Hello everyone. My videos about making rings, round containers, and other core shapes from Penoplex have gained millions of views, and surely regular viewers of the channel have seen them all. So, in order not to waste your precious time, I'll get straight to the garden bed made from such a homemade composite ring. For new viewers, I'll explain how to bend Penoplex and make such rings later on in this video. I'm cutting off a quarter with an angle grinder because this particular ring was made for another idea and was supposed to connect with a second ring. But the plans have changed. Now it will be a tall, warm, round garden bed, and the quarter is no longer needed. I'm mixing the leftover tile adhesive. Usually for finishing my small and not so small architectural forms, I use the cheapest tile adhesive, but this time I need to use up some not so cheap leftovers that might otherwise go to waste. You can apply many types of finishing coats to these homemade surfaces, both store-bought and almost free homemade ones. I will decorate a tall, warm, round garden bed to look like natural stone in the Mediterranean style that we've come to love. The height of the ring is equal to the width of a standard sheet of Penoplex, which is almost 60 centimeters. I plan to bury the ring about 10 centimeters into the ground, so to save on glue, I start applying it not from the very bottom. As you can see, it's hard to find a job simpler than this. And there's nothing to explain here, it's easier to just show everything. Regular viewers of the Yasha Kosiak Songs channel know that we're on a first-name basis with high, warm beds made of Penoplex. We've already gained enough experience to conclude that this is a real breakthrough in high, warm garden beds. High garden beds, being somewhat separated from the ground mass, warm up faster with the first rays of the spring sun. I strengthened the end using fiberglass mesh pieces and the same tile adhesive. While the adhesive is setting, I'll start telling you about the ways to bend polystyrene foam that I have personally tested. The material is brittle when bent, but on the contrary, it is quite strong under compression. Thanks to this, it has found wide use in floor insulation. It has long been laid under heavy screeds. The very first time I managed to bend Penoplex was with the help of strong fiberglass mesh, fixed with clamps and wooden slats. The mesh stops cracks from forming on the bend's outer side. Simultaneously, the inner side of the lightweight material compresses slightly, allowing it to bend. If you keep Penoplex bent and fixed for a while, it will stay bent. To avoid messing around with slats and clamps, I found another way. The fiberglass mesh is glued on with narrow strips of polyurethane adhesive foam. The polystyrene foam sheets can be bent by hand with some effort and placed under a wooden table's crossbar for about 20 minutes while bent. Because the strips of glue are narrow, it's even easier to remove the mesh than it was to attach it. That's how I bent the sheets when making our mini plunge pool. If you draw a circle on a surface made of sheets of extruded polystyrene, glued together with the same glue, and then, using that line as a guide, attach the pre-bent sheets. And then if you cut off the excess, you'll end up not just with a ring, but with a large round container. The glue has started to set, so now you can move on to drawing Mediterranean stones. Here, it's important to clear your mind, let go of all negative thoughts, and think only about good things. Otherwise, when drawing the stones, you might end up with what I call the fish scale effect, which will reveal that the stones aren't real. I draw the seams with a piece of curved wire. It's simple and pleasant. Focus on thinking about good things. We're not interested in who becomes the president of the United States, the Dow Jones Index, or the ruble exchange rate. At first, I didn't manage to get ready quickly. Fish scales are stones that are convex on one side, usually to the left for right-handed people and to the right for left-handed people. In this way, an experienced counterintelligence officer can identify a disguised left-handed person. When I started thinking about how good it is that I'm Belarusian, the stones immediately started to look like stones, no scales at all. It's a cool Belarusian October outside. That's why the tile adhesive doesn't set quickly, and you can work with it for a long time. In the summer, when it's hot, things change. When the surface hardens even more, I scrape it with a spatula like this, and the stones look even more like real stones. I didn't stop there and improved the methods of bending Penoplex. This time, again with the foamed mesh, but now using a homemade device that I called the Penoplex bender. The Penoplex bender allows you to bend Penoplex with much less effort, even to very small radii. A regular Euro pallet serves as its base. With the help of the Penoplex bender, I made a hive trough out of Penoplex, and in this footage, I'm just securing its bend on the side. I ended up with this kind of container of undetermined purpose. If you're too lazy to make a Penoplex bender, you can also bend the material using a bar and 2 clamps. I needed this kind of bending option when I was making our warm composter for mowed grass. In rounded corners, mechanical stress is lower, and the composter turned out to be very sturdy. The apple tree in the corner of our garden got sick, the apples became smaller, and it was decided to cut it down. The other apple trees that we planted over the years living in the village have grown a lot, and there are more than enough apples. I feel a bit sorry for the apple tree, but at least there's room for a new, tall, warm garden bed. Whenever I saw or prune trees and bushes, there are branches that I don't burn, but instead shred with my trusty helper, the garden shredder. This way, I get a valuable resource for tall, warm garden beds, easily decomposable coarse organic matter. It's just beautiful. When the tile adhesive is completely dry, I go over the stones with a wire brush and start painting them. I use the cheapest exterior paint and a few colorants. I paint so that stones of the same color are not adjacent to each other. I aim to evenly distribute them across the bas-relief surface. Then I move on to the next color. I do the same thing, making sure that stones of the same color don't end up next to each other. This time, I only needed 4 colors. The 5th color was the unpainted stones. The gray color of the tile adhesive is also a color. Then my wife continued my work using a stiff brush to mix substances and add volume to the stones. While the paint is drying, I'll tell you about a method for bending foam board that requires even less physical effort. It's suitable for large radii. That's exactly how this ring was made. From a scrap block and a used fiberboard panel from an old kitchen, with the help of metal brackets and self-tapping screws, I assembled a so-called dummy mold with a diameter of 1.5 meters. I prepared a strip of alkali-resistant plaster fiberglass mesh with a width equal to the width of the foam board and a length slightly longer than the circumference of my dummy mold. I mixed adhesive for gluing and plastering sheet insulation. I applied it to the glued sheets of extruded polystyrene foam. I roughed up the insulation sheets beforehand using a detached saw blade for wood. I embedded fiberglass mesh into the adhesive, smoothing the surface with a wide putty knife. Then I started winding the strip, securing it to the matrix dummy with screws through wooden blocks. This way, even while the mesh is still wet and freshly glued, it prevents the foam sheets from breaking. The cramped conditions of our covered space allowed me to wind only half of the circumference at a time. That's why I glue, plaster, and reinforce the remaining sheets with fiberglass mesh right on site. During the work, I realized that the easiest way to bend it is to pull on the free end of the fiberglass mesh and temporarily fix it in place. If you have a second pair of hands, it's even easier. Everything is simple as is, and anyone can manage it. So for a ring with an inner diameter of 1.5 meters, I used a little more than 4 sheets of Penoplex Comfort, each just 3 centimeters thick. When the glue set, I removed the bars. For extra reliability, I decided to apply a second reinforcing layer. As further experience building the mini pool Kupili showed, with these diameters, 1 layer is enough. But you can't spoil porridge with butter. I temporarily disassembled the dummy mold and enjoyed the perfection of the shape. I repeated the reinforcement on the inside as well. As you can see in the unsped up part of the video, the work is very simple and easy. It doesn't require any plastering skills or even any construction experience at all. Just take it and spread it. In warm weather, since only the temperature affects how quickly the thin layers of glue dry, you can make 1 ring per day with a single dummy mold. Creating the rings requires minimal effort, as 90% of the time is spent waiting for the glue to dry, making it feel like a side project. The paint dried, and we carried our garden bed to the spot designated for it. If you place it at this distance from the neighbors' fences, it'll be convenient to mow the grass, and the neighbors won't be able to reach your future rich harvest with their little hands. Just kidding. Our neighbors are good people, and they're all avid gardeners, even more so than us. When I was making our first rectangular bed out of reinforced Penoplex, I buried the sides about halfway into the ground to keep them from bulging out. In the next beds, to reinforce and save on extruded polystyrene foam, I used stakes made from cut drywall profiles. In this bed, thanks to the round shape, the edge is very rigid right from the start. You don't have to bury it at all, completely eliminating any groundwork with the turf. From above, it might look like I'm creating ancient Slavic pagan symbols and trying to appease Yarilo. I'm burying it only because we decided on a height of 50 centimeters. For us personally, 50 centimeters will work better than 60, and at the same time, it will level out. In this spot, our plot isn't very even. The main turf remains untouched. By the way, the sides of these beds with just 3 centimeters of foam insulation are equal in thermal insulation to sides made of almost 20 centimeters of dry wooden beams. No joke. The side's heat retention is crucial for optimal functioning of such beds. I cover the bed with a slightly tinted protective antiseptic varnish for stone, wood, concrete, and plaster as the finishing layer. And the stones, painted in what seems like a childish scribble style, start to take on a Mediterranean look. By mixing clear and tinted rosewood varnish colors, you can achieve different levels of brightness in the overall pattern. And I immediately started wondering why I put so little effort into making money and didn't buy myself a little house just a couple hundred meters from the warm Mediterranean Sea. But I push away these harmful thoughts that undermine the values of a true Belarusian. If we were gardening in the Mediterranean, what kind of warm garden beds could we even talk about? Everything grows perfectly well in their climate anyway. Try gardening in the temperate zone of our post-Soviet region. That's a completely different level of skill. Then I got to work on the firewood, or rather the coarse organic matter. We happened to have a few pine logs lying around. I start loading the high warm bed by laying down the wood. This layer will serve as the coarsest organic material, which under the influence of bacterial activity will slowly decompose and release heat in the process. Thanks to this effect, these beds are actually called warm beds. Not only are the warm sides important, but also loading them correctly. The wooden layer will also serve as insulation and prevent cold from rising from the ground, which is especially important in early spring. You can pour special store-bought bacteria over the coarse organic matter to speed up the process. But I save money and use humus from the composter to start it. It should also contain these bacteria. Then the reserve soil comes into play. When creating my small and not so small architectural forms, I remove the fertile layer from under them and put it in one place. I save it for new garden beds. Now it came in handy. Frequently repeated comments under videos about our raised beds are exclamations that it's easier to buy vegetables than to grow them yourself. Friends, maybe it is easier, but in our region, both in Soviet and post-Soviet times, there has always been an unspoken rule. If possible, grow and store your own food for the winter. Some people will say that you do this because of poverty, but I'll tell you that's not the case. Only by harvesting crops from your own garden can you be 100% sure of their quality. Then pine shavings are used. They will serve as finer organic material. I've been storing the shavings for so long that the original bags decomposed. I transferred them to new bags, but sometimes find remnants of the old ones, which we try to remove completely. Stored soil is reused. For instance, I doubt that all agro corporations supply us with quality products. I don't even trust farmers, who sometimes add extra nitrates just for the money. I also don't trust the old ladies who supposedly sell their garden surplus, according to legend. They're often just disguised traders and speculators. I'm not forcing anything. The choice is yours. Eat clean, healthy food or food packed with harmful chemicals. And, of course, as you lay down the layers, you need to water them generously. On our raised beds, we usually grow annual heat-loving crops, cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, and the existing beds, thanks to their high yield, more than meet these needs. That's why we decided to use this bed for blueberries. Before planting, my wife thoroughly soaks the roots of the bushes with water.
We have firewood there, and there's an empty space between them, and we need to fill that space.
The days are gone when you could bring a cartload of brushwood from the forest. The foresters would be furious about that now, which is why we didn't dare go to the swamp for peat either. In Belarus, known for its abundant rivers, lakes, and swamps, peat moss is only scarce in garden centers during peak blueberry planting season. But we got lucky. Some people might point out that pine firewood and shavings acidify the soil, but for blueberries, that's exactly the kind of soil they need to thrive. For cucumber and tomato beds, we'd use hardwood, not pine. We'd also use shredded branches from garden pruning instead of pine shavings. Links to our garden beds will be provided below the video, showcasing the organic matter we use to fill them. Blueberry roots are shallow and acidic peat is just what the doctor ordered. Surely not all perennials will be suitable for these kinds of beds. Despite the warm sides, it will surely freeze through during a harsh winter. But even extreme frosts are no problem for blueberries. Thanks to this, growing blueberries in round plastic containers has become widespread as they overwinter perfectly in them. And now we have a very large and warm container. That's why I'm almost certain of the success of this endeavor. If the bed were for vegetables, we would sprinkle humus from the bottom of the composter on top. We already have some experience in growing blueberries, so we believe in success. We would be glad to receive any helpful advice in the comments. Just to be on the safe side, we use proven organic fertilizer when planting. Even though the volume of this bed is almost a cubic meter, it won't be difficult for even a moderately prepared gardener to fill it. And since most gardeners are very resourceful, the depths of our yards store all sorts of things, especially behind the sheds. So there will always be something to fill another raised bed with. You can buy Penoplex at any hardware store or order it online. I'll leave the link below the video. It's best to try to spread out the roots, freed from their cramped containers, as much as possible to the sides. Friends, the Yasha Kosiak Songs channel has been nominated for the Best Do-It-Yourself Blogger of 2024 award in the construction category, which basically means Best DIYer. The event was organized by Vice Instrumenti Ru. Online voting is taking place in October and November. If you support affordable and effective construction solutions, I would really appreciate your vote for our shared ideas. The link to the voting is below the video. And those who don't want to vote can support the channel financially through the sponsor button on YouTube. Viewers from Russia can do this through the Boosty service. The link is also below the video. Once again, water everything thoroughly. For the loading, we needed some very simple components that naturally accumulate when living outside the city. Please don't judge our creativity too critically. That's exactly how we see the distant Mediterranean, perhaps in overly bright colors. And finally, we mulched the surface of the new blueberry bed with pine bark. You can use fallen pine needles, but we didn't dare go into the forest. The bark will prevent excessive moisture evaporation, and the bed will need to be watered much less often. Give a big thumbs up. Subscribe to the Yasha Kosiak Songs channel. Follow my Zen group, VK TikTok, and Instagram. All the links are below the video. Don't forget to vote. Also hit the bell, and then I'll definitely keep you informed. Let there be peace all over the world. Thank you.